Instead of fighting about where the value proposition is in console, the best thing I would suggest is now looking at the chess move that the console manufacturers are playing, especially with the people in their ecosystem. What they're trying to do is they're trying to upsell the folk that are already there. Guys and girls, it is time for an economic lesson. In fact, it's been overdue because the gaming market in terms of gamers have really stagnated. And right now, there's not really as much growth as these people would want. So guess what? They want to upsell you. In fact, they're playing and making chess moves, checkmating one another at every turn, while you, the consumer and the customer, it feels like you're a pawn, or not even a pawn. You're just taking all the backwash and backflow that's actually coming from it. Let me explain. You see, Nintendo comes out the wazoo swinging. They say they want to sell their box, their new handheld, for $449. They also tell you they want to raise their games to $80. At the same time, they tell you that if you want to buy the Switch 2 versions, you got to do a $10 upgrade. All of this stuff they're doing because guess what? They sold 150 million Switch 2 units. They already know that this is the number of people that would buy a Switch at the max in terms of the Switch 2. So what do they plan on doing? They want to quickly make number go up using the hype and the onset of a launch of a new console. We've been railing and talking about this, and for the most part, some people have been somewhat adamant about the reality. Now, PlayStation follows suit. They look at their box and say, if Nintendo is going to come out with this particular box, to heck with that. We're going to go ahead and raise the price of our boxes in EU and some other regions and cost more money. So they added additional, this is euros, right? They add additional euros to the cost of their consoles. Then they add additional, money as well to their subscription services, raising the price up. And at the same time, they offer basically nothing. And in fact, in some cases, they remove their own PlayStation published games on those subscription services for those that are a part of it. Xbox, on the other hand, they were winning. They were doing very well, but their console sales sucked. And believe you me, their consoles are way better than this handheld coming out in terms of performance and even in terms of value. Sure, they were asking you for, at this point, $70 games, which they now look and say, if Nintendo is going to bring $80 games out, we're not going to go ahead and do that. We're going to match them because our development cost, we feel that we are entitled to at least asking you for $100, but we're just not going to do it today. Then they give you a wonderful subscription service, which they increased the price last year to the subscription service to be able to go ahead and match PlayStation, who increased theirs. And so now you notice that all these companies are fighting with one another. You over here, you're just pretty much locked in one of their ecosystems, and you're taking everything that they're throwing your way because honestly, what are your options? I'm asking you, what are your options? You leave. If you don't like it, you leave. And when you leave, there's a better proposition out there where the hardware is yours and you don't have to deal with the direct fighting and the debris and the shrapnel that is fired your way. And you can get yourself a machine that you put together yourself or you buy that you get full control over in terms of the hardware and the policy surrounding the hardware. Now you can decide to deal with other intermediaries in this particular regard. Let me explain very carefully. Now, if you go into any of these ecosystems, right, you have to buy the PlayStation, the Xbox or Nintendo versions of games to be able to be compatible with those ecosystems. In some cases, physical, in some cases, digital. The thing is, they still control the policies within these ecosystems. You are still subject to whatever they choose that you do. However, on the PC side, you have intermediaries that are like a meat shield, in a sense, between you and these companies. For instance, if, say, PlayStation brings a game to PC or Xbox brings a game to PC, Steam, or in some cases, Good Old Games, and then in some cases, Epic, even though Epic and Xbox aren't friends anymore in a sense, but they do give you PlayStation games, they're kind of like that meat shield that you can kind of go through. The reason Steam is popular is because Steam sells customer protections. They're not going to let PlayStation come and try to rake you over the coals, nor would they allow for Xbox try to come and rake you over the coals. And Good Old Games also would put kind of a body in it by kind of making sure that they can get these games to you DRM free. Epic Games, on the other hand, well, everyone's still wondering what you guys are actually doing out here in terms of a store. It is what it is. So this is exactly where you now have a little bit more control to be able to put these folk, in front of you, because that's their business model. Their business model is meat shield. That's literally Epic Games and Steam's business model. It's the meat shield for the PC gamer to be able to absorb whatever shenanigans are being thrown here. They have to do things like regional pricing across the board. They have to do things like DRM management, where they can get you downloaders for your game so that you actually do own a digital version of the installer file for the game and be able to ensure that you can play the game without having all of the challenges that are attached to that. This is what the PC proposition gives you. Again, let's go back and look at the console proposition and see if this is actually something that is on the long term the best bet for the gamer. And the reality is, when you think about it, Xbox has now decided they're going to raise the price of their hardware, which is them basically signaling that they're ready for the next generation, because Nintendo was coming out swinging. And these guys are not going to want to sell hardware that is on par with this handheld. These guys, from a market perspective, they've basically started the domino effect. That's what they did when they came out asking for $449 for their own hardware. Imagine if a console is being sold for $399 and is more powerful, because you remember who went into the proposition with power as one of the marketing, possibilities? It was Xbox and PlayStation. They came to the table and said, yeah, we're going to sell you more powerful consoles. And so Nintendo, coming years into it with less powerful hardware, they're looking and saying, why should Nintendo be able to set this price while we basically go ahead and keep eating dirt? No, we're going to go ahead and we're going to raise our prices. Nintendo asked for more money for its Joy-Cons. $90. Xbox said, screw it. We want $65 for our own controllers. PlayStation's been sitting on almost $70 for its controllers all this while. All the while, they're requiring that you are locked into using accessories, for the most part, that are compatible in these ecosystems. Outside of their ecosystem, nonetheless, Steam has numerous kinds of controller support that is available, as well as third-party stuff that you can get if Steam is giving you problems with the controller of your preference. These are just little things that you can basically get if you made yourself a gaming renegade and got out from underneath their thumb. That's what it is, actually. It's not about performance, not about FPS. I don't know who told you that that was what this whole thing was about. I think people are very mistaken thinking that going to game on PC is about FPS. In fact, I even see some console warriors and some fanboys making similar errors. Like, I just looked at this tweet from Nib95 and I just shook my head saying, really? He's comparing a PS5 with a 7700 XT, and a 7800 XT. Yeah, it's not true. But he fails to realize that the reason anybody would actually go buy the 7800 XT over the PS5 Pro is freedom. Freedom from the shenanigans that PlayStation may try to pull on you. Like sell you a console and then sell you an expensive disk drive to go with it and a stand to go with it, and then tell you that you must connect your device to the internet and stuff. You don't have to deal with that. If Windows today said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to act foolish, everyone's going to look at it and be like, really? All right. Well, let's go to Linux then, because we have other possibilities. If you're on PlayStation, if you're on Nintendo, you don't have those possibilities. You're beholden to the operating system that's given to you and to the support that it can actually take. I think this is a very interesting lesson that 5 years into the console ecosystem, we're coming back to this conversation because it's one that I think has been due for a very long time. Talk to me in the comment section, guys. I want to hear your thoughts. What are you thinking right now about all of this? I think this conversation has been due for a long time, but for the most part, sometimes it's actually okay for events like these to basically come out and actually, set the tone for a conversation, because I've had this conversation many times. But then consoles were, in quote, cheaper. Games were, in quote, not really expensive, right? But now they're starting to tell you that they're going to raise your game prices. And the talking heads on the internet are going to encourage it. while they take your money to buy those games because you donated to them and you super chatted them. But here we're trying to tell you like, yo, it's more than the super chats. You need to basically have the best value that's out there. And so you don't need to super chat me. I just want you to just know that as someone who played on console, I found their ecosystem to have these limitations. And I never could have even dreamt that this would actually get to this point, to be honest with you guys. I never could have dreamt that it would get this interesting at the end of the day. I'm out. Talk to me in the comment section. Appreciate y'all so much. Peace out.